Welcome to the Route 422 Business Advisor Show. My name is Bill Haley. I'm your host and publisher of the 422 Business Advisor magazine. And today we've got a great show for you, an interview with Steve Bamford, the Executive Director of the Pottstown Area Industrial Development Corporation. Steve, welcome to the 422 Business Show.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.
Pleasure to have you here today. Steve, you're the Executive Director of the Pottstown Area Industrial Development Corporation, PAID Inc.
Correct.
For about a year now.
Yep.
Right?
Almost exactly.
Let's start out. Tell us a little bit about what PAID is.
Sure. Well, PAID is an acronym, stands for, as you said, Pottstown Area Industrial Development, Inc. It's a nonprofit 501c3 that was originally formed back in 1965 as an affiliate of the Chamber of Commerce.
Sure.
During that time, it did a lot of good things, including developing the industrial park up on Circle of Progress Drive. Over the years, they also acquired some commercial properties in our downtown, and then acquired them, resold them for redevelopment over the years.
Including the building that we're in now. We're in the Tri-County Area Chamber of Commerce office at 152 High Street.
Sure.
Which is those Pottstown residents recognize as the Brick House.
Correct.
Location. And PAID was instrumental in acquiring a liquor license and the property for that. Is that correct?
You're correct, and was also involved in a number of other properties in our downtown.
Right.
Flash forward to, 2009, 2010. The Urban Land Institute was invited to come to town and did a advisory services panel report. And one of the things that came out of that report was they recommended that a new entity be created to kind of take the point on economic development in Pottstown. And rather than create a new entity, some of the leadership in the community looked at this existing entity, PAID, and said maybe we can reorganize PAID and have PAID serve that function. So indeed, that's what happened. 2010, a partnership of the school district, the borough, and the County Redevelopment Authority got together and reorganized PAID, brought in a new board of directors, and then in 2011 hired an executive director, and that was me. I came on board in November of 2011.
Right. Right, and I actually was a Main Street manager a couple of years back, and I participated on the PAID board at that time. So before you arrived, I kind of saw the wheels turning leading up to the hiring of an executive director such as yourself. So I think this is not an arbitrary thing, but it was actually a well thought out plan to bring in an individual such as yourself. And then so describe your role. I mean, the way I understood it, you were someone who can facilitate economic development by assisting developers who are interested in moving into the borough or retail or any type of business.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about your role and what your directive is.
Sure. Economic development is a lot of things, but at the core of our mission is business recruitment and retention. Basically, any activity that can help attract new investment to the borough, enhance our tax base, create new jobs, just generally stimulate economic activity and growth. I've been working in economic development for over 20 years, and I've worked in other communities. And I think it's kind of, it's critical. Oftentimes these kind of public-private partnerships can be very effective. I'm not a borough employee. We're a private not-for-profit, but we work very closely with public entities such as the borough and the school district and the county to make things happen.
And I guess the Hill School is a little bit involved in that too. At least
Sure.
they're on the board, and they're certainly a huge part of the borough itself, and part of the overall team that's involved in supporting what you do.
Sure. We're very fortunate as a community. We're in our 5.5 square miles. We've got 3 anchor institutions. You mentioned the Hill School. We've also got the West Campus of the community college, and we have our largest employer, Pottstown Memorial Medical Center. So we're very fortunate.
So that's a good segue into, let's talk about some of the strengths of the borough of Pottstown, and quite a few.
Sure, and at the top of the list would be those anchor
Sure,
institutions.
sure.
Huge assets that we can build on. I don't know if a lot of folks are aware of this, but the West Campus of the community college has grown at an incredible rate, something like 60% over the last 5 years. Over 3,000 credit students are currently enrolled at the West Campus, and a significant number of non-credit folks as well. We've got the Hill School, beautiful 200-acre campus down at the other end of town. Their student body comes from something like 28 different states, 18 foreign countries. That's a huge asset for us.
Sure.
And then, of course, we've got the hospital, our largest employer, with over 1,000 employees. So, as I said, these are huge assets, and all 3 of those institutions are very much engaged in economic development.
Excellent. And if I may add to that, there are other assets to businesses looking to move in. One is a relatively strong arts and culture
Sure.
movement in this town. Now it's called the Steel River Playhouse. Started out as the Tri-Pack, but it's live theater in downtown Pottstown. We have
Absolutely.
the Gallery on High, which is now Art Fusion
19464.
but they've been very active in promoting arts and culture in the borough. We actually have an art gallery in the North Hall of the community college.
Yep.
Of course, we have a river, which is an important asset to a town. And I did participate in that ULI conference. And the river was really pointed out as something that should be developed and used as an asset for the borough. We have wide streets, beautiful architecture, a lot of buildings available, not necessarily at the prices, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but there's a lot of opportunity
Sure.
for businesses to come into this town and enjoy arts, culture, dining, infrastructure, and there's just a lot of really good reasons why a business might want to consider the borough as
absolutely.
the industrial park. There's a lot of room in there. How big is the borough of Pottstown?
It's 5.5 square miles, 22,000 people,
Right.
which is large in terms of boroughs in the Commonwealth. But packed into that 5.5 square miles, as we said, there's a lot of assets, things that we're building on and using to our advantage.
And just circling back to the college for a moment, I know I recently did a cover story in 422 Business Advisor talking about their Center for Entrepreneurial Studies at their main campus, but they're moving a lot of those entrepreneurial studies and workforce retraining programs to the West Campus, and they have some big plans. And actually, you mentioned how much they've grown. Physically, the campus has been growing too. Recently, they took over what was known as the AAA building on Hanover Street, and they're now finally within eye shot, let's say, of the downtown. I mean, for a while, the college was kind of isolated down by the river, and there wasn't a whole lot of interaction between students and faculty in the downtown. But now that's starting to change, isn't it, with the campus now growing towards the downtown?
I've looked at that very closely. We need to do a better job of giving students and faculty reasons to come up to High Street. But you're correct. Their latest addition to their campus, their University Center on Hanover Street, is one more physical step closer to connecting with High Street. The University Center is a great story. You know, a lot of folks think of the community college in terms of workforce training and associate's degrees, but you can get bachelor's degrees and even graduate degrees here in the borough of Pottstown without ever leaving Pottstown. The University Center is a partnership between the community college, two universities, Temple and Villanova, and two colleges, Chestnut Hill and Albright College. This is the first semester that it's been housed in this new building. I thought it was interesting when I was at the ribbon cutting for the new facility. One of the speakers was the president of Albright College, and he was commenting that it's not uncommon for a new graduate of Albright College to set foot on Albright's campus in Reading for the first time at commencement because they've taken all their classes here in Pottstown.
Right. And just to clarify, you could be a student of one of those two universities or colleges, and you're enrolled in that college, but you take your classes here in Pottstown.
Correct.
And it's the same as if you had been on that campus. The quality of the education, the instructors are the same, everything is the same, except it's more convenient now. Just come off of 422 right to the West Campus of Montgomery County Community College and get your education.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Well, let's circle back a little bit now and talk about what plans guide your efforts overall in terms of your your mandate.
Sure. There's really three planning documents.
Okay.
And like any good document, plans are, or any good plan, the document is a living document. These things change over time, but there's three that are really the foundation. The first is the borough's Economic Development Strategic Plan that was adopted in 2008, which is still very relevant in terms of the action items in there. The second is the document we already alluded to when the Urban Land Institute came to town. Their advisory services panel issued a report. That is another document that guides our efforts. And third is the newest planning document, which is the Heritage Action Plan, which is all about the Schuylkill River and the Schuylkill River Trail, and how we capitalize on that from an economic development perspective.
Well, a question about that, related to that, part of that ULI report and recommendations, and I may be, being a little facetious here, but I think it was one of the leaders of that council or that committee recommended that we get our chainsaws out and cut down some trees and pull up those railroad tracks and make that river accessible. Has there been any further talk or discussion about, or are there any developers interested in trying to put together a riverfront project of any type?
I've talked to numerous developers over the last year about the river in general, also specifically about Keystone Boulevard, where we have parcels designated as Keystone Opportunity Zones. There's been numerous discussions, assessments, explorations. Nothing is imminent at this point, but it's certainly an asset that we're trying to capitalize on. Along those lines, the townhouse redevelopment on the former Mrs. Smith's Pies site at the corner, that Cornell Homes has recently taken over and is moving forward. That's exciting to have market rate new construction.
And they're really flying up now, and I guess probably the way those homes are priced and where interest rates are at historically low rates, it's extremely attractive now for someone to take advantage of that now.
Agreed.
And that creates foot traffic in the downtown and needs for services. And I remember when that project began, it was John Wolfington was initially, and Pate was instrumental in that as well. And part of that plan involved also developing the outside strip of that with commercial properties, and I know that that's still available, there's still marketing. Is there any interest or any movement in that area at this point?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's a parcel that's available for retail development.
And ultimately it will be developed, particularly when those homes are completed and there's a built-in customer base for those retail establishments.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, we've talked about Pottstown's strength. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges.
Sure. Well, it's exactly what you would think. We are a borough of 5.5 square miles that is, 99% developed. So our opportunities to grow our tax base are very limited. Unlike our neighbors in more suburban or rural settings who have cornfields that can be developed into shopping centers and business parks to generate new tax revenues for the community, we don't have that ability. So as a result, over the years, our tax rate, primarily our school tax rate, has gotten very high.
Yes.
That's a challenge for us.
Right.
So that's why the school district is a partner in PAID. Because in the long run, strategically where we want to be is focusing on redevelopment of what are currently, to some extent, functionally obsolete, but as you pointed out, architecturally very significant and interesting buildings.
Right.
Get these buildings redeveloped, create more tax revenues, and hopefully provide some tax relief for our current taxpayers.
And you probably won't say it, but I will. The economy and the sluggish recovery from our near recession is a factor here. Let's face it. And incrementally, the economy is growing again, but very slowly. The real estate market, particularly the commercial real estate market, took a tremendous hit. And that's just starting to come back. But that has to be a little frustrating for you to come into a position at a time when the economy is not humming, let's face it.
Yeah.
And so talk about that a little bit.
Well, there's micro issues. There are things that we can control at the local level, and then there's macro issues, and that's what you're really alluding to, the macro issues.
Right.
There are things we can do locally to become more business friendly and to be more professional and proactive in how we go about recruiting new businesses. But you're right. Although the recession is officially over, the country is in a very slow recovery, and that makes attracting investment anywhere, let alone Pottstown, a challenge.
I recently wrote an article for the 422 Business Advisor where I interviewed Andrew Lemostre, he's a real estate attorney in town, and he's a member of the Pottstown Downtown Improvement District Authority, and a real positive guy and very proactive in terms of encouraging buy local and really promoting the downtown. But one of the things he pointed out in terms of retail, how malls have been struggling, and how obviously online shopping is a factor, but malls are being replaced by for instance, the Main Street and Exton kind of new downtown environments where you have a traditional downtown here. So do you see a trend where retail may, now it's never going to be like it was in the 30s and 40s and 50s, but where there may be a renewed interest in creating shopping districts in traditional downtown environments, and Pottstown may be a beneficiary of that.
Yeah, they call those suburban shopping center developments neo-traditional development.
Okay.
I think they're trying to emulate what we have here that's
Right.
authentic and real.
Right.
So clearly, that's an indication that folks like that aesthetic. That's something that people are drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my opinion, we're not at a place right now where we're going to compete for national chains. And that's not typically how traditional downtowns are redeveloped. Generally, it's the independent retailers that come in, take a chance, make an investment, and prove that there's a demand for products and services in a downtown. Then, once they're successful, then you start to see some interest from national chains.
But that being said, and you're absolutely right about that, but that being said, you still, in any retail model, you still need an anchor store or two.
Sure.
And in the example of Phoenixville, it was the Iron Hill Brewery. Now, I know Slyfox Brewery just moved into Pottstown in the Circle of Progress. They're
Correct.
not in the downtown. So it's not likely you're going to see another brew pub come into the downtown. However, there are opportunities for a larger anchor type store to come in, and one
Sure.
example, the old Dame Chevrolet building would be a great example of that, and there are other locations.
You mentioned brew pubs too, and restaurants in general. Restaurateurs are kind of by nature risk takers, and they view the historic classic architecture that are in our downtowns as an opportunity to differentiate themselves. There are certain people I can, when I first meet them in the first half hour I'm talking with them, I get a sense of whether they view a downtown setting as an opportunity. If somebody just as well run their business out of a vanilla box along a highway somewhere, it's really hard to get them excited about a downtown location. But then there are those folks that see a downtown and they see opportunity. It's a way to differentiate themselves. They can do something neat. Something usually in restaurateurs.
How about like a Trader Joe's type of or a Whole Foods or kind of a non-traditional supermarket type thing? Would that be a good fit for the downtown?
I do. Some of the larger chains that you mentioned, I don't know that at this point our demographic would appeal to them, but certainly the concept is something that I think could be a good fit.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, I mentioned the Slyfox Brewery coming in last year, and they came to Pottstown because, for a number of reasons, but they liked the demographic. They found enough space and an opportunity to grow to meet their needs. And they found this. I mean, they started in Phoenixville, Kimberton, and they for a while had a facility in Royersford, which they sold to an ex-employee, but needed to grow, and they found Pottstown to be ideal. So that's a real success story for the downtown. And there's another success story I know you've had a hand in that's still in the process, and that is Video Ray. They manufacture underwater camera equipment, correct?
More than that.
Okay.
They are the global leader in micro remotely operated vehicles.
Oh, okay.
Their name Video Ray comes from what you alluded to. Initially, these were remotely operated vehicles that had just cameras mounted on them, hence the name Video Ray.
Okay.
Today, they have sonar, robotic arms, radar, radiation detectors, all sorts of accessories can be mounted on these.
Oh.
They're used in various markets, military, homeland security, in commercial applications, anywhere where you would normally, or in the past, you would send a diver, a scuba diver, but because of the depth or because of safety issues, you don't want to send a person, you use one of these remotely operated vehicles.
Okay. So here's clearly is a company that is technology oriented. It has a strong upside in terms of its growth potential. It has 30-some employees now, but probably will be adding employees as we go. And they chose to buy a building
Sure.
in downtown, is it 212 High Street?
Correct.
212 High Street.
The former Levitt's building.
Former Levitt's building, and I guess they're putting some money into that building to fit it out to their needs. But they're making a long-term commitment, and I read that part of their, and I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman who's the decision maker.
Scott Bentley.
Scott
is the
Bentley.
principal.
Made a decision based in part on a visit to Pottstown to the Steel River Playhouse.
Yeah.
And he wanted to put his employees in a location where there was an opportunity for arts, culture, a downtown experience, dining, but also, I'm sure, the infrastructure.
Yep.
Everything was perfect for them. So they're kind of a real success story and probably a model for other businesses that might be considering a move. And I guess in their situation, they had outgrown, they were in a barn, is that correct?
Yeah, they're in a kind of a rural setting, very different from where they're moving, but a rural setting in East Pikeland Township that they had outgrown. They're falling all over each other. So they started a search throughout the region for buildings that could work for them. And the idea of locating in a traditional downtown where you could walk to lunch, where there were opportunities for, as you mentioned, arts and cultural opportunities, really appealed to them.
And talk a little bit about the Pottstown Downtown Improvement District Authority. It's a group of they're volunteers basically. There's a board, and there are merchants who pay the Padita tax to support the organization. But they've done a pretty darn good job of over the years of bringing people to the downtown. They do a Christmas advance every year, and first, I think when I was there, we were doing First Saturdays, bringing in entertainment. Talk a little bit about that organization and what an asset that is to the town.
We work very closely with Padita, and it's a little confusing for people, the acronyms.
Sure.
But Padita is the Pottstown Downtown Improvement District Authority, and they are focused on several blocks in the downtown, which are primarily retail blocks, but there's other businesses there as well. Work extremely close. The current Main Street manager is Sheila Dugan, and Sheila and I are in constant communication, talk frequently, sometimes several times a day. Our missions are very closely aligned, although there are distinctions, as you alluded to. Padita is very much involved in special events and promotions, which is not something that Paid is directly involved in. Padita is very focused on just several blocks in our downtown, where Paid's focus is borough-wide. But our missions are very compatible, and we work very closely together, and Padita has done a fantastic job. It's not, that model of a special assessments district is not unique to Pottstown. It's something that's been very successful in other communities, and it's something I think we continue to do a good job, and in the future we'll do even a better job with.
Yeah, it's worked very well in many towns, and actually, the town I grew up in, King of Prussia, just created a business improvement district as
Exactly.
well.
Very different.
Very different, and
setting,
obviously they're much better funded with the amount of businesses that are within the zone and therefore pay the tax.
Yeah,
but
right.
they're all different. But it is a great tool among other tools. And let's face it, there's no one entity that's going to make the difference alone. It really takes the cooperation of different economic development organizations to really move things forward.
Yeah.
I know you probably can't reveal with discussions about things that may happen, but to give our viewers some optimism, we talked about in the past year Slyfox and Video Ray coming in, and I know, and I don't know what happened to the Greenbrier Express was in the industrial park. I think they suspended operations temporarily. Is there anything else coming on the horizon that you can discuss publicly at this point, or in general terms?
Yeah, well, no, I can't really get into specifics, but you're right. Look, if you look at the last 12 months, we touched on most of the major projects in the last 12 months. Slyfox, Video Array, the expansion of the community college at the University Center building on Hanover Street. We alluded to Steel River Playhouse. We just completed this summer Phase 2, which was their new facade with that high-tech marquee. Opens up into kind of a funky urban lobby inside the Playhouse. Very cool. Cornell Homes and the townhouse development moving forward. One thing we didn't talk about down by the river is the Schuylkill River Heritage Area recently cut the ribbon for their new interpretive center. So there's interactive exhibits down in that former Pico building at Riverfront Park, which is serves as the headquarters of the Schuylkill River Heritage Area. You can now go in there, general public can go in there and see and utilize these interactive displays that tell the history of the Schuylkill River in terms of industry and recreation, and how important it is not only to Pottstown but to the region. So we've got all these things that just in the last 12 months,
Right.
I feel like we have a lot of momentum.
It's starting to build, right? And to add to that, I just had a conversation with Don Silverson from the Hill School at the Tri-County Economic Development Luncheon. Hill School is now moving forward with their Green Street project, they call
Correct.
it, where they're redeveloping some homes for faculty.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because now you're talking about faculty living on the campus, and these are individuals who are great consumers.
Sure.
And who will utilize the arts, culture, and other amenities of the downtown, and it just kind of puts more pebbles on the pile to build that consumer base, which is really what the people you're trying to attract want to see. They want to see the demographic. They want to know that if they come and make an investment in the town, they're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And so the more that the demographic improves, the greater the chances are for their success. So
They also want to know other people are making an investment,
Well,
right?
sure.
So when I'm out there trying to encourage someone that may not be familiar with Pottstown, doesn't have a vested interest, they're not already a stakeholder, and I can rattle off all these projects that you and I have just been discussing during this interview, it gives them confidence that, hey, other folks are making an investment. I want to get in on this.
Right, right. And somebody's got to jump in the pool first, but once they do, then things start moving at a more rapid pace. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of what we're seeing happen now. And of course, we all want to see the economy continue to improve, but as it does, and as the real estate market comes back, it creates more opportunity and it makes Pottstown even more attractive.
Yeah.
And let's face it, one of the things we didn't mention about the assets of Pottstown is its location.
Sure.
Right in the center of Route 422. Easy access to 100, 422 in every direction.
Correct.
So, you know, that's something a lot of areas don't have, which is great transportation infrastructure.
Yeah, it's all part of the infrastructure. One of the advantages we have is because this was an industrial town. That's why Pottstown is here. It's grown up around primarily heavy industry.
Sure.
Well, a lot of heavy industry, now it's a macro issue, right, has not only left Pottstown, it's left the country to some extent. But what we're left with is this great infrastructure. Not only the highway network you just alluded to, rail, we have excess water capacity, we have excess sewer capacity. So we've got this kind of this heritage.
I think FiOS is coming into the borough now, right? So technologically, communications-wise, there's improvements in that infrastructure there. Pottstown has really one airport in Pottstown, another one right in Limerick. So there's another transportation asset that a lot of towns just don't have. So there's an awful lot of reasons why businesses should consider moving into this area. Let's talk a little bit about Montgomery County. Now, when I was the Main Street manager a few years back, there was a lot of talk about a $50 million bond issue, and $12 million was going to come to Pottstown, and there were 7 opportunities, and there was an awful lot of work put into taking advantage of the opportunities from the county, and then the rug was pulled out. Is there any, I mean, I know the county is still recovering from their budget issues, as all municipal governments are with local, county, and state, and federally, let's face it. But do you see any assistance, financial or otherwise, coming from the county to help you in your job to attract business to the downtown?
Well, the new administration, led by the chair of the commissioners, Josh Shapiro, also commissioners Leslie Richards and Bruce Castor, have been extremely supportive. They made it very clear that Pottstown is a priority and is very important to the future of the county. However, they've also made it clear that they're dealing with some serious financial constraints themselves. The bucket of money that economic development efforts county-wide have been funded out of in the past were the same capital dollars that the county uses to maintain their own infrastructure, their own real estate, their own buildings.
Yeah.
And I think when I know when this new administration came in, they were surprised at the condition of some of the county property and the magnitude of the investment, the capital investment the county wants to make in their own properties. So as a result, the dollars that at one time were thought to be made of it could potentially be made available to municipalities like Pottstown. those dollars just aren't there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Steve, I can't believe the time goes so quickly because there's so much to talk about, but we're just about out of time here, and it probably 30 seconds or so we have left. Just if you would like to make an appeal to anybody who's considering moving their business large or small to the borough.
Sure, and not only those folks, but
Okay.
to borough residents and existing businesses, people are always asking me how they can help. We all know businesses outside the borough who are very successful that may be considering relocating or opening a second or third location. You get wind of something like that, I'm not asking anyone else to make the hard sell, just make the introduction.
Okay, quickly, give your phone number and how people can
Sure.
contact you.
610-326-2900, 610-326-2900. We don't have our website up yet, but it's in the works, so
Okay.
in the next 30 to 60 days, you'll be able to find us easier on the
Give
on
us
the
that
internet.
URL because this will be airing for a while and it'll be on my website.
Sure, it's paidinc.org.
PAIDINC
.org.
.org. Steve, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Very interesting, and I'm sure we'll have you on the show again to update us on all the great things happening in Pottstown.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for
I
being
enjoyed
here.
it.
Well, I want to thank you for viewing our show today, the 422 Business Show. We're here for you, business owners and operators. My name is Bill Haley. As you know, I'm the publisher of the Route 422 Business Advisor magazine. We serve businesses throughout the 422 and Route 100 corridors. For more information, please visit www.422business.com. You can sign up to get the free issue of the magazine, and of course you can read back issues of the magazine, see videos like the one you're watching now, access resource links, and there's a lot of information that's going to be helpful to you as a business owner. So once again, I'm going to thank you for watching our show, and please tune in again next month where we'll have another interesting guests to help you understand how business is helping improve your life on the 422 corridor.